Hey everybody, Rhadamant here. Thanks for tuning in to episode 5 of Kerbal Space Program. So let's get going. I have a lot more science to play around with, and what I'm going to do is unlock electronics. So I have the seismic accelerator, or accelerometer, which allows me to acquire a little bit more science when I'm out on mission. I also want to get an actuator, which allows me to grab stuff. I know that sounds a little weird, but what that will allow me to do is to sort of attach my ship onto someone else's ship and force a deorbit. And then with the remainder, let's see what we have. We have propulsion systems. Maybe, but probably not. Space exploration would be probably pretty good for the ferrying mission. So let's get that. And we also can get flight control. Inline reaction wheels or inline stabilizers are kind of nice. Let's take a look at the missions we have. We've got 2 rescue missions, so let's actually get those underway. Let's what do we need? Plant a flag on the Mon. I'll get there eventually. Yeah, let's do the rescues. Let's not leave those astronauts up in space for longer than they need to be. We'll be kind. So what I'm going to do is to grab a... Maybe we can do both in one mission. That'd be pretty cool. That'd be a nice goal. So let's go and do that. We are going to put a crew cabin here so we can grab both pilots. I am going to put a little inline reaction wheel here. And then our re-entry phase is going to be real simple. We will re-enter just with this little capsule, and that's it. Nothing else. Let's call this RHD Rescue and save it. And of course, this can't launch or anything. I'm just trying to figure out what kind of orbits I'm going to need to put myself in. So one is really simple here. Let's hide flags. And then one is sort of a Mun orbit. Okay. So Lumon is going to be harder to get than Tanfred, but Tanfred shouldn't be that tricky. Cool. Let's go back into the VAB and construct the ship. Now I know I'm going to need enough fuel to basically get to the moon and back. I think what I'm going to do instead of finish off the RHD rescue is let's go not redesign the wheel. And but this ship is kind of slow. Yeah, I'm gonna redesign the wheel. The trouble with this ship is we have the funds to pay for more powerful engines, even if they're less efficient. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, just to get from point A to point B quicker. All right. So again, heat shields done. We are going to do some orbital, or do some asparagus staging. So the first stage here, I'm going to set it up like this. I'm curious about some of the fuel tanks. So some of these fuel tanks are enormous, and obviously we don't need, I mean, that's a silly amount of fuel. But let's fully construct this. And at the bottom of these, let's see how efficient we can get. Let's go for maybe Reliance. They are, no, the swivels are a little bit heavier, but they're more efficient. And at the top of these, we'll have the advanced nose cones. Oh, let's get fancy. Let's get real fancy. Right, this is a rescue mission. So let's not pull punches here. And we will replicate this again and again. And this needs to be moved up a little bit. There. That's a pretty cool looking rescue pod, right? Now, we're going to leave their ships sort of orbiting, unless... No, that's fine. We'll leave their ships orbiting. What I'm going to do here is at the bottom of this phase, we are going to hook it up with a bunch of fuel. So this is a fuel tank, and we'll find a nice wide fuel tank for the bottom here. Yes, that is a heck of a lot of fuel. And the way we're going to stage this is the fuel tanks at the bottom here are going to fuel the first radial separating stage. If I could manage to put the... Okay, there we go. So the first to go will be this tank here. Let's go ahead and move our engines a little bit lower. Okay. And then after the first ones go, let's pick those. Yes. Then the second ones, it's kind of arbitrary at this point. And then the third ones. Okay. So the second ones are going to be over here. So we'll put fuel from this to this, and then from this to this. Perfect. That makes the asparagus staging pretty straightforward. Next up, to get us into nice, comfortable orbit, let's also, before we go any further, go ahead and strap on some batteries, just so that we don't run out of power. Alright, great. Then down here, I'll just do it really simply. I'm just going to do a bunch of SRBs. We know they work. We've used them before. They're cheap and they're efficient. So let's do just that. Have some kickbacks. And I think this is going to pack enough of a punch for us to get us there. No problem. So we're going to restage everything. So SRBs to then decouple to the swivels, and then to start decoupling thereafter. And this is probably honestly overkill, but better over than under. We're trying to do 2 missions at once. I mean, hell, this is actually probably enough Delta V to get us like to min-miss. But I'm just gonna do the rescue missions. So we are tethering that together, and I think this will be just fine. What I will do is to adjust some of the thrust. So let's show our thrust to weight ratio. We'll bring this down to maybe 65. Probably a little bit higher than it needs to be, but I want to make this mission go quick. And then we can maybe start a mission to min-miss. Or maybe even go and have the episode run a little long. So our starting thruster weight is 1.23. Okay. And we will have extra slots for the crew. Okay. Rescue vessel looks good to me. Save and launch. I don't really care who the pilot is. It's going to be Jeb by default, and that's totally fine by me. Okay. And launching. Now, if I really want to min-max this, what I should do is to wait until Tanfred is a little bit closer, and we'll try to... That will cut down on having to rendezvous with Tanfred. Because if I put myself in orbit and I'm literally on the other side of the planet, we're going to have to rotate around each other for a bit to correct that. And this way we start off a little bit closer. I guess now is probably a really extraordinarily bad time to double check that my phases are all right, but they actually do look correct to me. Hopefully that is not incorrect. All my staging. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab Tanfred, sorry, and then after getting Tanfred we'll grab Lumen. And do both of the rescue missions back to back. And if you are a patron of mine and you watch Kerbal Space Program and you want to have Tanfred or Lumen named after you, let me know, because I'm happy to do so. Our apoapsis is 27, so we're about halfway to space. I'm going to start leaning towards 90. I'm just sort of assuming, yeah, Tanfred is a 90 rotation going, I guess that is counterclockwise. Alright, so our apoaps is in space, and to save liquid fuel, I'm just going to circularize once we're up there. Which means adding a maneuver here and circularizing. Now, if I have a nice orbit that is higher, or rather like higher altitude than Tanfred, Tanfred will catch up to me. So that's sort of the idea here. And unfortunately, it is nighttime, so it's going to be a little tricky to see what I am doing. Burn time. Come on, put me in space. It says my burn time is in the negative, so I'll just start burning now. But no, my burn time isn't in the negative. It is... I should start burning at 45 seconds. Thereabouts. Oh, actually, even shorter. I'll burn at 28 or so. Oop, I should have been burning already. Alright, let's go circularize. And my center tanks are about to be ejected. Ta-da! I've got 4K Delta V on ship right now. These, of course, are more massive and less fuel efficient, but they do get me moving quicker. That's the real advantage. Goodbye. And that means that the missions are shorter, hypothetically. Unless I screw up somehow. Alright. So we are circularizing. The apoaps is nice and high. The periaps is still above 70. So as we orbit, Tanfred will catch up to us. So what I'm going to do is set Tanfred here as a target. And as you can see, already we have a near pass. We are missing each other by 60 kilometers. And in space, that's not that much. So all I got to do to fix this is to add a little maneuver here. Well, let's warp over here. It'll be a little easier to see what I'm doing. And what I'm going to do out here is to boost up a little bit to circularize. Just a tad. It's going to allow Tanfred to catch up to me. And it barely requires any fuel, so it's not that big of a problem. It is a very, very weird rescue vessel. It kind of looks like a pack of missiles or something. All right, burden time for this circularization is less than a second. So that's all we'll need. And now we are moving slower than Tanfred. So if we look at velocity, Tanfred's velocity is 2,300 meters per second, and mine is 21. Basically, Tanfred gets to catch up to me. As you can see, we're getting closer and closer. And what I'm going to do is then set him as a target, add a maneuver to intercept him. So if I start cutting, if I cut a little bit here, all right, we can even intercept closer. Oh, look at that, a 2.8. 2.4, separation. Two 2.2, 1.7. Although I don't really like that my periapse dips like it does, so I'm gonna actually move my maneuver. We don't want to re-enter space. I'm trying to do both missions at once, if we recall. So this puts my periapse in separation nice and good. Oh, didn't mean to fire up my engines. All right, let's go ahead and warp to next maneuver as soon as I am looking at the maneuver node. All right, and the maneuver takes less than a second to do. So it's not very difficult. Not really fuel requiring. There we go. And this puts my separation at 24 kilometers. I'm going to add another maneuver to bring that down a little bit. Let's see, what we need to maneuver, not up a tad. Let's see. Bring it in. Like that. This puts my separation at 3 kilometers. Gonna get it better. I could probably feather it to be perfect, but we don't need it to be absolutely picture perfect. Because we can just EVA from one ship to the other. I think this will be... I mean, it's nice to have the rendezvous milestone done. So I'm trying to get it a little bit closer. 1.8, that's pretty close. 1.3. All right, 1.3 will be good enough. Let's get ready for this maneuver, and we will be within 1.3 kilometers of one another. Okay. 1.9. All right, good. Let's go ahead and warp to when we are really close to one another. And Tanfred, you're coming home, my friend. All right, at this point, for it to be easy for Tanfred to transfer from our ship to his ship, we want to slow the speed difference between these two ships. So I'm going to do just that. Sort of matching his speed. And 20 meters per second is, let's bring it down to 10. 10 meters per second is easy to match. So Tanfred's over here, and this puts a world first milestone of a rendezvous. So Tanfred here is going to EVA. Let go, and then we are just going to, because I don't have to like dock or anything, we're just going to jetpack over to the other ship here, and make sure not to smash into it, killing Tanfred. That'd be bad. This is a rescue mission, not a smash Tanfred's mask mission. And here, as you can see, I can see the targeting speed and data, so I know how fast I'm coming in. All I had to do is double click on the ship, and we are coming in a little fast, but that's fine. I can slow down. That's one thing that will happen when you're EVAing is you can find yourself like flying towards a target ship way too fast. You don't want to keep jetpacking. So I just smacked a little bit. I didn't smack hard enough to do any damage. Sort of like bumping into a wall. And then at this point, let's go and switch back to Jebediah. Jebediah is going to transfer crew. And he's going to enter the crew cabin so that Tanfred can enter the command pod. So now we have Tanfred. Tanfred is an engineer. She, okay, kind of assumed a male, but that'd be my mistake. And let's next set Lumens as our next target. Now we have... why is it saying no Delta V? These are empty. Alright, we have 2.5k Delta V. So the first thing I want to do is to adjust my ascending nodes. I don't know if I have enough fuel for this. It's possible I do. It's possible I don't. To match the sort of weird tilt that the other V8 vessel has. So there we go. That is the best match I can do. And that's going to cost us a lot of Delta V here. So what I'll try to do, I will try to match the tilt, and then I'll see how much Delta V I have left. Because like I said, it's entirely possible I actually don't have enough fuel to save this second person. We did our first crew transfer. Cool. A bunch of world firsts here. Some of these world firsts help to unlock missions, which is pretty cool. Alright, Lumen. We'll see if I can't get you. I'll know pretty soon. So we have a 30-second burn time to sort of tilt the vessel. And I'll start it with a T-minus 15. Or overshoot it a little bit. Keeping an eye on my Delta V. I guess I could have dumped my monopropellant. I generally forget to do that. Alright, so we are 0.7 degrees off. Now, let's go ahead and see if... No, I don't want to set you as target. See if we can do a transfer, a maneuver, over to intercept Lumen's ship that, that doesn't cost us too much fuel. I think it will probably cost too much fuel. That is my best guess. Meaning that we'll have to send a second vessel out to do the rescuing. As you can see, the separations aren't great either. And depending on the angles at which I send out. So we have, how much Delta V do we have left? 1400? Yeah, I could try it, but it's going to be really tight. So ideally what we would do is to raise our apoaps to roughly the distance of her vessel here. Not so much worrying about immediate transfer. Although, you know what I could do? I could also rely on EVA suits a bit. It's probably dreadfully irresponsible of me to do it, but it could be fun. So I'm trying to get separation to be a minimum here. Now, EVA suits aren't going to be able to... Whoa. I forgot to change the scale. EVA suits aren't going to be able to reduce speed a lot to target. But they'll be able to do something. And what I'm trying to do is have the separation of these two ships be at a minimum. So now I can see when and where they're going to get separated, and I can try to bring these two things together. I think, honestly, it's going to be a lot easier to just send a second rescue mission. I'm just going to do that. So let's go ahead and land Tanfred. We will land... We'll warp to here, and we will land at KSC. Not a fully failed mission. It'll just take a little bit longer to get Lumen. All right, let's slash to cancel, and I guess this could be a good way to practice aerobraking. So let's add a maneuver to deorbit and bring it up so that we cross paths with KSC, the Space Center, a little bit better. Something like that maneuver. We'll have to do. Okay. So now let's go ahead and advance time to next maneuver. Once we're looking at the maneuver node. Good. I can just advance time manually. It's not that far into the future. Okay, that's probably good enough. Nope, we're going to need to adjust it just a tad upwards. Okay. Now we are on a path to fly over Kerbal Space Center, basically scraping the atmosphere. So we're re-entering now, and I'm going to point towards retrograde. We're going to do some atmospheric burning here for sure. I think what I'll do is... Let me see. Yeah, I'll just aerobrake the rest of this. And hope that my calculations were more or less correct. We're almost certainly going to land in the ocean beyond Kerbal Space Center. But it'll be close enough. And worth the rescue. What will be interesting to see if my batteries blow up or not. My guess is yes. Here's my temperature overlay. Ablator is taking a lot of heat. Seems like we're coming in at a pretty funny angle. Kerbal Space Center is right there. We're pretty close. The air braking wasn't awful. We're actually closer to the inland, the island station here. Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty good. That's pretty good for like a very rough eyeballing, I'd have to say. All right, parachute deploys. We slow down. We're moving, just just under the 9, because the crew cabin is a little heavy. So it's a slightly harder splashdown, but there we go. Recovered, and one of the 2 pilots are safely, happily home. Cool. I have no idea why we got science. Yeah, I know why, but it doesn't really matter to me. All right, so the astronaut complex, we have a max of 12 Kerbins. As you can see, they have a different suit color. They are treated a little bit different. And Tanford comes with pretty high stupidity. Stupidity and courage doesn't really matter. It's cosmetic, but there we go. Contract complete. We still need to do Lumen here. Lumon, or whatever your name is. We gotta rescue you. So let's go ahead and do a relaunch, and I might add some additional fuel to this thing. So we know that the kickback SRBs at 65% thrust have no problem getting us nice and high into orbit. What I can do is just add some more liquid to this mission here, and then we'll have plenty of fuel to pretty much do whatever we want. That and make my ship look like it was bought and paid for by Duracell. Okay, some aerodynamic nose cones. Oh, they can be orange or black or whatever. All right, let's do that again. Now our thrust to weight is going to be thrown off a bit, and also we're going to want to strut up the top here. I think this is a hideous rescue vehicle, truth be told, but it's on a time constraint. So our thrust to weight now is actually we could still take off at 65, but I'm going to bring this up to 70. Our thrust to weight was just above 1. We would eventually take flight. So now it's 1.16. Save this again. Our delta V is increased, and we're going to launch. Now, I have set my game up not to keep persistent debris, which means that before we launch, let me go to the tracking station. And I am going to terminate Tanfred's shipwreck, meaning that it no longer gets tracked. All right, let's go back to launching my rescue vehicle. And that way it cleans up space, so to speak. Because if you keep adding ships and stuff, it eventually gets kind of cluttered. All right, Jebediah, let's go. Up and onward. And I have a lot more fuel now to make maneuvers and stuff with this ship. My center of mass drastically changed, I think. So I hope it doesn't get all weird and wonky, because I just sort of slapped on more fuel. And we want lumens as our target. We're actually really launching at a terrible time. So I'm actually going to revert flight and launch again. Now what we need to do is we need to launch at a point that we can match the axis of lumen, which means selecting it as a target and launching when we're sort of pointed towards that axis. Lack of my tech lingo, apologies. So here's our ship, and right about now we're much better to launch than before. Ta-da! Actually, I really should have waited till I was at the ascension axis. Let me just do that again. Let me do it correctly and explain why. So if we launched, actually, I'm out of time. I'm really going to have to do this next episode, so I sort of apologize. This episode has just been one rescue mission, and next one we get to match a really weird orbit. And I'll try to walk through the how and why of, getting to that specific orbit. So if you have any questions for me or feedback of any type, drop me a line. If you want Tanfred named after you, any patrons that are out there listening, drop me a line again, and I will go ahead and make those changes, and I'll catch you all next time. So thank you all very much for watching. Adios.